Parliament, where MPs are currently considering the Special Prosecutor Bill. Majority Leader Oseiche Mensah Bonsu is on the floor. And if you recall, this is one of the panacea we expect it to be to the corruption issue we have here in this country. Let's go over to Parliament and hear them debate.
About Article 88.3, but clearly Article 88.4 provides for a delegation of responsibility by the Attorney General. As simple as that. What the bill seeks to do is to lift the opportunity afforded by Article 88.4 to place this on a higher pedestal, to give the officer that the Attorney General may designate to have a greater focus. Mr. Speaker, that is the remit of the bill. So for anybody to say that, to imagine that it offends the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, clearly, it will only exist in the imagination of that person. Clearly. The bill does not envisage to do that at all. It does not amend the Constitution. What is giving impetus to the provision afforded by Article 88.4. As simple as that. And that's why I'm worried. When people begin on a journey, that journey is a journey of no return. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Ayariga rationalized that we should rather strengthen existing institutions and leave them to perform. Mr. Speaker, in corruption cases, one can never provide sufficient motivation or incentives. For instance, if today you are paying an officer, an investigator, an equivalent of $10,000 per month, and the person is to investigate a corruption case involving, let's say, $200 million, you think that person is not a human being? If he's not a man of steel, if he's not a man of conduct, if he's not a man of morality, if he's not a person of patriotism, that person will bend. So you can never, in corruption cases, provide sufficient incentives. You need moral uprightness above everything else. So, Mr. Speaker, for the Honorable Ayariga to say that let's resource people and just deal with the existing institutions, certainly, you know that cannot work. That is why we need this special office to deal with such cases. If we need to fight corruption and frontally confront the issues. Mr. Speaker, we should not also lose sight of the equilibrium potentials that the bill provides. We are told, for instance, in Clause 72, the issue relating to plea bargaining, for instance, and I just want to read that, where a person is charged with a corruption or corruption-related offense under this Act, the accused person may inform the Special Prosecutor whether the accused person admits the offense and is willing to make restitution of the proceeds realized from the commission of the offense. If it is to a community, what would be the form of that restitution? It has the potential of evening the playing field, providing adequate opportunities to people in the community. Mr. Speaker, let's not lose sight of that. And so for those of them who are saying that it doesn't introduce anything new, please give yourselves enough room to study the bill. Of course, as somebody has said, it is still not a perfect document. And that's what Parliament exists for. We can only improve the bill as we have done to all bills. The Attorney General is not claiming that this is a perfect bill. Let's all put our minds together. And Mr. Speaker, by way of conclusion, all over the world, in corruption cases, the burden of proof shifts from the investigator to the suspect. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in the advanced democracies, when the bank knows that on a monthly basis you earn, let's say, $1,000, and tomorrow they find in your account a deposition of, let's say, $1 million, you would immediately be summoned to respond to it. Where did you get the money from? The burden will shift to you. Mr. Speaker, So let's all put our minds together. If we want to fight corruption, we need to step out, show boldness, and confront this country. Otherwise, if we leave it as it is, heaven knows where this country will drift to. In Africa today, if we talk about corrupt countries, people are quick to mention a particular country. They never willed it like that. It started bits and pieces, like it's starting in Ghana. We all do know. Let's decapitate the snake today, and the monster will cease to exist, to haunt us and haunt posterity. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The Honorable Leonard Attorney General may make a few remarks.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself and my office, I wish to convey my sincere thanks to Mr. Speaker and honorable members of both sides of this House, and in particular to the committee that spent so much time in considering the bill. My office and I have listened carefully to the arguments on both sides. As the Honorable Majority Leader has said, no document is sacrosanct. Indeed, it is for that reason that this bill has to be considered by the representatives of the people of this country. We are hopeful that by the time it is done with, and my office and I will remain with the House throughout the consideration. I will want to plead with the House. The bill has been called various names, including the creation of a monster. Let us not create the impression, Mr. Speaker, that we are dealing with a can of worms. We must face up to the difficulties that this country is confronted with through corruption. But if indeed a kind of worms it is, they will never mature into sausages. They may well turn into some caricatures that we might not be able to deal with should they force themselves out. Perhaps this is the time to deal with that canker called corruption. And to do that, Mr. Speaker, we must pry that can gingerly and deal with the context. We thank you for the opportunity, and we welcome any suggestions, because the efficacy of any piece of legislation is tested only by its application within a period. So we will listen and do the needful. We thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leonard Attorney General. At the conclusion of the debate, the question is, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
An act to establish the office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of corruption involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector implicated in the commission of corruption, prosecutes these offences on the authority of Attorney General and provide the related for related matters.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill 2017 is accordingly read a second time. Honourable members, item 8. Thank you, Honourable Learned Attorney General. You may take your leave. Item number 8.
Speaker, it is intended to have the three motions taken at the same time. But the last one, the Coastal Development Authority Bill, was concluded, the consideration was concluded just yesterday. We need to do some reconciliation with the Northern Development Authority Bill as well as the Middle Belt Development Authority Bill, which has not been done yet. The committee has informed me that they are working together with the table officers and the Attorney General's Department to do the reconciliation, and we can then take the third reading tomorrow. Speaker, that being the case, I would like to move that we do
Those are live visuals coming in from Parliament, where we just saw the Attorney General speak there about the Special Prosecutor's Bill right after the Majority Leader Oseche Mensah-Bonsu spoke as well. He says that she's saying that this country should confront the difficulties that we have to confront. Elton Brobe joins me from Parliament, so he has been there, followed the discussion. He can put it in proper context. Hello, Elton.
Yeah, gives you.
Elton, because we got in a bit late, all we heard was, the motion and the fact that the motion had already been moved. Tell us a bit more, if you can just put it all together for us so it makes sense.
Okay, so today the Committee on Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs brought forth their report. They were given the referral to consider the bill as presented by government. So the committee, I'm told, held a number of, stakeholder engagement, including, speaking to people who are directly involved with this particular issue. Remember that the laying of this particular document had some skirmishes with the minority, raising issues about the mode in which government wants to bring forth this particular document. Eventually, the document was withdrawn at some point, relayed. The committee had an extensive discussions with various stakeholders when Parliament was on that long break. Now, eventually today, their report was the subject of parliamentary consideration, and members, after the motion had been moved by the Attorney General and seconded by the chairman of the committee, the content of the committee's work was put before Parliament, and as it is with Parliament, the Speaker allowed members from both sides to, speak to the document. The minority and the majority leaders were the last to speak to this particular issue. The position of the minority is that they are not against the establishment of an office that will solely be dedicated to the prosecution of public sector corruption. However, they have some concerns, and their concerns relate to, their long-held, agenda that government is seeking to use the Office of the Special Prosecutor to go after political opponents of the MPP, and that they will resist any attempt by, the government to use this to fight members of the NDC, and that they would have wished that government concentrated on resourcing already existing anti-corruption agencies like STRAJ, the police to do their work well. And then, but because we don't need another office to do the same work already being done by STRAJ and other agents that are dedicated to fighting corruption. But because government is bent on giving a new name to the fight against corruption, and that name is a special prosecutor. They are not against it, but they will watch the work of the special prosecutor and ensure that the work is done within the confines of the law.
But then were there any, Elton, sorry to have interrupted you that way, were there any outstanding issues they have with the bill?
The only concern is what I just enumerated, that they want it. The government says that the office of the special prosecutor will be independent of the executive. They want to ensure that that is adhered to, and that their proposal is that a judge, a sitting judge, is selected to chair this particular or to manage this particular office. The majority's argument, indeed, from the majority leader is that they are only going by what the Constitution stipulates, and that they hope that the fight against corruption is stepped up with the establishment of the Special Prosecutor's Bill. Now, what happens today is just the first phase of the bigger work expected to be done. What is going to be done is now the House is now going to concentrate itself on now debating the merits of the document, the various clauses. I'm sure that we have hundreds of amendments that you have to now consider. And it's going to take a while, even though the report has now been approved. The next stage is where the work of Parliament will be brought to the fore in debating and accepting the various clauses and strengthening this particular Special Prosecutor's Bill.
Elton, we may have to cross over to you again when there's any major development on this particular matter, but thank you so much for putting it in proper context. Elton Bobe is our Presidential Affairs Prosecutor, I almost said. He's our Presidential Affairs correspondent, but then he is also a former parliamentary correspondent and understands very well the processes of Parliament. So he's putting it in context for us. As and when we have to cross over again to Parliament, we will do so. Elton, if you can hear me, we see you, and I'm sure we can hear you as well. So go ahead.
So we are now out of the Chamber of Parliament. The debate is over. The report has been approved, adopted by the House. So what is next for the House in terms of moving from the adoption of the report to the consideration of the bill? First of all, you wanted to convince the House to adopt your report. How was it like? I mean, you've had like over 3 months, speaking to people in putting this report together.
Yes, that is quite true, because the Office of the Special Prosecutor's Bill is such a bill that we needed a lot of public inputs. That explains the reason why when this bill was brought under the certificate of agency, the committee thought it expedient and politic to bring a report before plenary to say that this bill was not one that had to be passed under the certificate of agency. It had to go through the normal legislative procedure. And let me say unambiguously that the committee doesn't regret recommending to the plenary that the bill ought to go through the normal legislative process, because the kinds of inputs and contributions that were solicited from the public were so insightful and so knowledgeable that I think that at the end of the day, they will go a long way to enrich the bill and to ensure that the bill, when passed into a law, will stand the test of time.
Right. So now, Mr. Badamdala, you chair this committee, Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. I listened to the minority leader in his closing remarks. He was of the view that already we have existing anti-corruption agencies. If government indeed want to fight corruption, all government has to do is to resource these agencies. We don't need another office to prosecute corrupt cases. In your justification in getting the House to approve of this bill, what informed the decision to still move on and get the House to accept the Special Prosecutor's Office?
All the institutions that I've mentioned that people are arguing that can also perform the functions that is yet to be performed by the Office of the Special Prosecutor are multi-purpose, investigative, and if you like, prosecutorial institutions. If you take the institution, an institution like Shraj per the Constitution has the power, among other things, to investigate corruption and corruption-related matters. But it is worthy to note that Shraj doesn't have the power to prosecute. If you have an institution like the FIC, for instance, or the IOCO investigates a lot of cases, including, if like corruption and corruption-related matters. And what people or experts are saying is that it would take an institution with a single mandate purpose, or with not an institution that has to be vested with the mandate to prosecute just corruption and corruption-related matters, in order that the menace of corruption can be addressed and addressed decisively. If you take the office of the Attorney General, for instance, the Attorney General's office does not only prosecute corruption matters. The Attorney General's office also prosecutes other criminal offenses. So the time has come for an institution like the Office of the Special Prosecutor, to be established, so that corruption, which has been the canker that this country has been battling with since time immemorial, can be tackled and dealt with decisively. And I think a lot of people have raised the issues relating to Article 88. That Article 88 appears to be infringed by the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the purported vesting of some aspect of prosecutorial power in the Office of the Special Prosecutor. The committee has done a lot of painstaking work in order to ensure that Article 88, which vests in the Office of the Attorney General the power to prosecute, is not infringed or is not sinned against. But you see, at the end of the day, as we've crossed over the second reading of the bill, when we get to the consideration stage, when the need arises, people will proffer amendments, and amendment will be proffered in order to ensure that the bill is perfected.
All right. Already, I've seen in the document you have over 79 amendments that you are likely to consider on the floor of Parliament.
Yeah, that is true. That explains, that underpins the kind of, if like, deep, knowledgeable, and insightful work that the committee embarked upon.
All right. And does the bill specifically deal with what should go into appointing a special prosecutor? What are some of the factors that must be considered in arriving at this decision?
The special prosecutor must be a person who is knowledgeable in law, must be a person who has at least 15 years standing at the bar. The person must be qualified to be a member of Parliament. The person must have integrity. The person must have honesty. The integrity and the honesty of the person must be tried and tested. Some issue was raised in the plenary with respect to the fact that we need to resource our existing investigative bodies.
Yeah, that's been the argument of the minority.
So it is needless to establish another institution and to vest in that institution the power to investigate and the power to prosecute. I respectfully differ. The point is that it's not how much the special prosecutor will be paid that matters. The ultimate consideration that the president, to me, will take on board is the kind of integrity that the person possesses. Because if the person doesn't possess integrity, no matter how much money is given to the person can still be compromised, and the person, if like, can still be bribed.
My final question would be, we are about to cross into November, and usually around this time in the life of Parliament, the consideration or the attention is given to the budget presentation. Now you have a major bill that is also awaiting consideration of the House. Are you sure that by the time this House rises for the Xmas break, the bill would have passed?
We've gone past the second reading stage. We are entering into the consideration stage. And I learned the consideration stage will start as soon as possible next week.
But there's no guarantee. Looking at the
when we start
and the argument that may come
when
you'll be able to see through
when
this.
we start next week, we'll try as much as possible to ensure that this bill is given the priority, the utmost priority, so that day in, day out, from Tuesday up to Friday, even if we are not able to finish with the consideration stage, we would have done at least 80 to 90% of the work, so that the following week, we should be able to finish with the consideration stage, and take the bill through the third reading and pass it into a law. All
right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Abdallah, the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Just a quick word from the Member of Parliament for Keita, Richard Kwashiga. Will Parliament be able to see through the passage of this bill?
Well, why not? As long as it's gone through the second reading stage, it will obviously get to the consideration stage, and it will be deliberated upon. Of course, it's a bill with 77 clauses, and so far over 100 amendments have been filed. I know for certain that Honorable Dapamekwe alone has filed about 45 amendments. So a lot of work has been done on the bill, and clearly there have been several consultations, even with civil society and all. So it has gone through, a serious work, But again, for me, I think that anything that will fight corruption is welcomed.
The minority is in full support of this.
Of course, anything that will fight corruption, we will support it. But you see, I believe strongly that we have all the laws in this constitution and other acts to fight corruption. What is needed is a willpower to fight corruption. We don't need necessarily another law, because this law, this bill that will become a law soon, for me, is much ado about nothing. It's much ado about nothing. All the prosecutorial powers that are needed. We have institutions that have legally been charged to carry out those functions. All the necessary investigative bodies that are needed already exist. So for me, it's much ado about nothing. The only concern that lots of people have is that it should not become a tool for witch hunting, And again, if they want to really do witch hunting, they still have, it's within the remit of the laws we have today.
We'll bring you more of that in our subsequent bulletins. Elton there in Parliament trying to get that the thought of both the minority and the majority there on what will be the fate of this particular bill.